Whoa, did you see that Starship launch? Talk about a firework.
Quite a show, wasn't it?
Today we're diving deep into the SpaceX Starship test flight that ended with a bang.
Yeah, bang might be putting it lightly.
Okay, maybe bang is an understatement.
Yeah.
We're talking about a full-on, rapid, unscheduled disassembly here. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, if you're digging this kind of space exploration deep dive, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more awesome content.
Much appreciated.
So for those who haven't seen the footage, SpaceX launched their Starship prototype from their Starbase in Texas. The goal? To test the system's ability to reach orbit and eventually pave the way for missions to Mars. And initially, things looked pretty good. The Super Heavy booster did its job, even pulling off that impressive chopstick maneuver where it lands back on the launch pad.
It's a sight to behold, for sure.
Yeah.
Imagine two giant chopsticks plucking that booster right out of the air and setting it gently back down.
Precisely. But then things took a bit of a turn. Let's just say the Starship upper stage had a little mishap.
Multiple engine failures during ascent, which led to a loss of control and, well, ultimately resulted in that rapid, unscheduled disassembly you mentioned.
Okay, a massive explosion high above the Earth. It was definitely a dramatic moment, and it raises a lot of questions about what went wrong and what this means for SpaceX's ambitious plans. So walk us through it. What exactly happened during those crucial minutes of the ascent?
Well, the initial part of the launch seemed to go according to plan, but around 8 or 9 minutes into the flight, things started to go awry. Multiple engines on the Starship upper stage failed, and without those engines firing correctly, the vehicle lost its ability to control its trajectory.
Okay, so engine failure, definitely not a good thing. But for our viewers who aren't rocket scientists, can you explain what kind of engine failures typically occur in these situations? What causes them, and why are they so catastrophic?
Sure. There are a few things that can go wrong with rocket engines. One possibility is a problem with the fuel and oxidizer flow. If the fuel and oxidizer aren't mixing properly or igniting correctly, the engine won't produce thrust. Another possibility is a mechanical failure within the engine itself. You have to remember, these are incredibly complex machines operating under some pretty extreme conditions.
So we're talking intense temperatures, pressures, vibrations. It's a recipe for potential problems.
Exactly. And when you have multiple engine failures happening in quick succession like that, it becomes almost impossible to recover. The Starship lost its stability, started tumbling, and, well, you saw what happened next.
Yeah, it was tough to watch, especially knowing all the hard work and innovation that went into building this thing. It really reminds you just how challenging space exploration really is.
Absolutely no room for error when you're dealing with rocket science. Even seemingly small issues can have pretty disastrous consequences.
And speaking of consequences, this wasn't exactly a contained event. Debris from the explosion was scattered over a pretty wide area.
That's right. We saw reports of debris falling over parts of Florida and even into the Caribbean.
Wow. So this wasn't just a spectacle in the sky. It had a real impact on the ground, even hundreds of miles away from the launch site.
It certainly did. And that brings up some important points about the safety protocols and the environmental impact of these kinds of launches, even when they're conducted by private companies like SpaceX.
You're right. We can't just focus on the excitement of space travel. We also need to be mindful of the potential risks and consequences involved, both for people and the environment.
Yeah, it really underscores the fact that space travel, even when it's done by private companies like SpaceX, still has very real consequences.
Absolutely. And it brings up some really important questions about, safety protocols, environmental impact, the balance between pushing the boundaries and managing the risks.
You're hitting on some key points there. I mean, take the environmental impact, for example. We tend to focus on the immediate aftermath, right? The air traffic disruptions, the debris falling back to Earth. But there's a bigger picture here, a growing concern about the accumulation of space junk in orbit.
Right. I remember reading about the Kessler syndrome, this idea that if we keep launching things into space without a plan for dealing with the debris, we could eventually create this cascade of collisions that makes space travel basically impossible.
Exactly. Like a chain reaction. One collision creates more debris, leads to more collisions, and so on. It's a serious issue that needs to be addressed. And the Starship incident, while it was unfortunate, it really does highlight those potential consequences of not taking space debris seriously.
So it's not just about getting to Mars, it's about getting there responsibly and sustainably.
Precisely. We need to think about the long-term effects of our actions in space, just like we do here on Earth.
Okay, but let's shift gears a little bit and talk about SpaceX's response to this setback. They're known for their rapid iterative development strategy, this idea of constantly testing, learning, improving. How does this explosion fit into that philosophy?
Well, setbacks are kind of inevitable in any ambitious endeavor, especially one as complex as space travel. But what sets SpaceX apart is their willingness to embrace failure as a learning opportunity. They gather huge amounts of data from every launch, analyze it meticulously, and use it to refine their designs and their procedures.
So it's not just about figuring out what went wrong with this particular Starship, it's about using that knowledge to make the next one even better.
That's the core of their approach. And remember, even though the Starship upper stage met a rather fiery end, the Super Heavy booster actually performed flawlessly, including that spectacular chopstick landing.
Right. Even in the middle of this dramatic explosion, we got to see a glimpse of the incredible progress SpaceX is making with reusable rockets. Talk about a silver lining. But for those of us who aren't aerospace engineers, why is this reusability thing such a big deal? What does it mean for the future of space travel?
Think of it this way. Traditionally, rockets were one and done. You launch them, they deliver their payload, and then they either burn up in the atmosphere or become space junk. Reusability changes the game completely. By recovering and reusing those rocket components, you drastically reduce the cost of each launch.
So it's like the difference between buying a new car for every trip versus just filling up the tank.
Exactly. Reusability makes space travel more affordable, which opens up a whole world of possibilities. It means we can launch more frequently, send more ambitious missions, and explore the cosmos in ways that we could only dream of before.
So even though this Starship test flight didn't go exactly as planned, it's important to keep in mind that it's all part of a larger journey.
Yeah.
One that's pushing the boundaries of space exploration in some pretty remarkable ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we continue this deep dive, we'll explore the broader implications of SpaceX's work, the challenges they still face, and the ethical considerations that come along with our quest to become a multiplanetary species.
And if you're finding this discussion as fascinating as we are, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep making these deep dives possible.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now let's dig a bit deeper into the technical aspects of the Starship design and the challenges of achieving full reusability for both stages.
Okay, so we've talked about the explosion, the debris, the reusability factor. But let's zoom out even further. What does this test flight and Starship in general mean for SpaceX's grand vision of colonizing Mars?
Well, Starship really is the cornerstone of their Mars ambitions.
Yeah.
You know, it's designed to be the ultimate transport system for getting people and cargo to the Red Planet and potentially even, establishing a permanent human presence there.
So this isn't just about planting a flag and taking some selfies on Mars. We're talking about building habitats, developing life support systems, maybe even terraforming the planet.
It's a bold vision for sure, one that really pushes the limits of science engineering and human ingenuity. But it also raises some pretty profound ethical questions.
Like, what kind of impact would human colonization have on Mars? Should we even be messing with another planet's environment?
Those are definitely valid concerns.
Yeah.
I think we need to proceed cautiously and thoughtfully, really consider the potential consequences of our actions. We also need to be mindful of the risks involved for the astronauts who would be making this journey.
Yeah, it's a long and dangerous trip. It's a lot to think about. It's not just the technical challenges, but the moral and ethical dimensions of space exploration, too.
Absolutely. And as we venture further into the cosmos, these questions are only going to become more complex and more pressing.
It's a good reminder that space exploration is about more than just rockets and technology. It's about expanding our understanding of the universe, our place in it, and our responsibilities as explorers.
Well said. And as we continue to push the boundaries of what's possible, we need to have these open and honest conversations about the ethical considerations.
So what's next for Starship and for SpaceX's Mars ambitions? What are the key hurdles they still need to overcome?
Well, for starters, they need to nail that landing. As we saw in this test flight, getting that massive Starship upper stage back on the ground in one piece is no easy feat.
I imagine it's kind of like trying to land a skyscraper on a dime.
Yeah, it's an incredibly complex maneuver that requires a lot of precision, a lot of control, and, a lot of things have to go exactly right. But if anyone can do it, it's SpaceX.
And once they've mastered the landing, what about the journey itself? A trip to Mars is going to take months, if not years. How do you keep a crew healthy and sane in such a confined and isolated environment for that long?
That's another huge challenge. They're going to need to develop advanced life support systems, radiation shielding, and figure out ways to provide psychological support for the crew. It's a long and difficult journey that's really going to test the limits of human endurance.
And then there's the whole question of what happens when they get there. How do you establish a sustainable colony on a planet with no breathable atmosphere, no liquid water, and extreme temperatures?
It's a monumental task, for sure. But SpaceX and other space agencies around the world are working on solutions, things like inflatable habitats, 3D printed structures, closed-loop life support systems.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about the sheer scale of the challenges, but also the incredible ingenuity and determination of the people working to make this dream a reality.
It really is. It's a testament to the human spirit, our thirst for exploration, and our desire to push beyond the limits of what we thought was possible.
Well, folks, there you have it. Our deep dive into the SpaceX Starship test flight and what it means for the future of Mars exploration.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the technical details of the explosion to the ethical considerations of colonizing another planet.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Continue the conversation in the comments below. Share your thoughts, your questions, your hopes, and your concerns about the future of space exploration.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode.
Thanks for joining us on this cosmic adventure. Until next time, keep looking up and keep exploring.